All right, I'm here with Ed Guimaraes, CFO of Sierra Metals. Ed, thanks for having us in.
Thanks, Evan. Nice to have you guys here.
So you guys are a polymetallic miner operating assets in Mexico, Peru, covering copper, zinc, silver. Want to tackle the elephant in the room first. Obviously, the coronavirus is dampening the outlooks, well, hurting the pricing of some of the commodities. Obviously, looking at the China demand coming down. How do you guys look at that? How are you planning around that? And do you see that having a meaningful effect on Sierra Metals?
Right. Well, that's very concerning, and it's metal prices are down. Copper and zinc prices are down 10%, and with hopefully we've hit some sort of a bottom here, but. Only time will tell. All we can do really at Sierra is focus on cost control, optimizing our assets, control the controllables.
Well, I think that's what investors really need to hear is, a company not trying to pretend that they can do something they can't. And I think it's also worth talking about, or just mentioning, you guys do have that silver contribution. So what is that potentially, where does that fall?
That's right. So right now it's become the second most profitable or revenue contributor, if you will, behind copper. Copper's now at 45% of our revenues, and silver is in second spot at 23%.
And I guess that's kind of the value of why you like polymetallic miners as opposed to, maybe single-sourced metals.
Exactly.
Looking at the Q4 production numbers that you released, year over year, substantial growth, 25 to 45%. But then quarter over quarter, it looks like things have kind of flattened off. So is that, steady state operations? What does that mean to the Sierra story? What does 2020 look like?
Yeah, I think Q3 and Q4 were essentially very similar, but we're still expecting some further growth in 2020, with Bolivar reaching towards 5,000 tons per day, and Yaracocha moving towards the 3,400 ton per day average.
Right, excellent. And so looking at CUSI just quickly, obviously that appears to have been, you're seeing challenges there still trying to reach that 1,200 ton per day mark. You're saying about Q2, end of Q2 is what you're hoping to reach that mark. What effect, if any, does this have on the Sierra story?
Yeah, it doesn't have that much of an effect. CUSI represents approximately 10% of our revenues, right. And it's always been the baby in the Sierra family. But we're hoping that by end of Q1, early Q2, we could get to the 1,200 ton per day level, and working on getting our grades up as well. So it has presented some challenges, but we believe long term for CUSI is still exciting. But I think once the NI 43-101 maiden reserve comes out sometime in Q2, that's going to really lead the way for us in terms of what we have and what we're dealing with.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure investors will be looking forward to seeing that and getting some clarity there. But it kind of, along with this Q4 production numbers, you released 2020 guidance, first time ever you released EBITDA. Obviously, that shows the confidence you have in your operations, the stability there. But do you want to just provide some color, talk a little bit about what that range is, and what is it going to take for you guys to achieve that guidance? Is some heroic feat, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, so the EBITDA range, as you mentioned, the first time ever, and that speaks to our sustained operations, mostly Yaracocha and Bolivar. Yeah. And we're pleased to report that we're looking at between 109 million to 126 million of EBITDA, and we believe that that's attainable. There's nothing in there that's depending on some sort of a massive expansion
or a permit or anything like that.
Or permitting of any means. That's exactly right. So we're confident we could hit that number pending metal prices.
Now, looking at Sierra's cash balance, you had about $40 million on the balance sheet as of the end of Q3. For 2020, it's looking like about $115 million in EBITDA, let's call it, with approximately $50 million set aside for CapEx. So that leaves you with around $65 million in cash flow from operations, which really brings it to about $100 million by the end of 2020. That's obviously a substantial amount considering you guys are profitable. So can you give investors an idea of what's going to happen with that cash?
Sure. We recently announced a substantial issuer bid, so it's a form of return of capital to the shareholders, and that's up to $30 million for 2020. We've carved out 15 million of that to come sometime in Q2, and that's going to be by way of a substantial issuer bid, modified Dutch auction, which will provide shareholders who are looking to sell a range for them to get out. And I think it's going to bode well for Sierra share price and improve share price liquidity as well.
And that's really those 2 points are really where you come in for the dividend, and why you chose this modified Dutch auction over the dividend is helping out the liquidity and then giving the larger shareholders an opportunity to finally sort of liquidate some of their substantial position after many years supporting the story. Right?
That's exactly right.
Right, and that's 50. I think we're at 52% for Arias and 10% ish for BlackRock.
That's right. And there's some other institutional investors as well.
Right.
And some people might look at this as a negative. Well, why are they returning capital back? They should be focusing and investing in their assets. But I just want to make it very clear that we're still focused on investing in our assets, and this is over and above excess cash flow. Right. And should an opportunity arise where we need to curtail that return of capital, we would definitely evaluate it.
Absolutely, you're talking M&A in those cases,
exactly.
Or some other big growth opportunity.
That's right.
And so on that growth side of things, reserve and resource statements are coming out. Eurocoach was released, I believe it was last night, and then Bolivar coming in Q1, and then CUSI coming in Q2.
That's correct.
What does that mean for the Sierra story? We're talking massive improvements, just quality, and how does that look both for the future?
I think it's really a story of improving quality, and it's an ongoing, continuous exploration program where we're looking to grow our reserve resources. But I think it's really just allowing the company to say to the market that, look, we're replacing what we're mining.
Yeah.
And I think a 7-year mine life for both Yaracocha and Bolivar is really a nice place to be. I don't think we need to get to 10 or 12 years of mine life. And it's just continuing to replace our depleted reserves.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk. 2020 is obviously setting up to be a big year for Sierra, so best of luck.
Thank you, Evan.